Hi, I'm Govindh Jayaraman, and this is Paper Napkin Wisdom, episode number 378 and the 45th edition of the Edge of the Napkin series. So, something I've experienced over the last few weeks is there are moments in life that just cannot be rescheduled. They arrive once: a graduation, a final performance, a season ending, a child becoming someone new right in front of you. And perhaps as you hear that, you can already think of a moment you were there for, or maybe one you wish you had entered just a little more fully. For many entrepreneurs, the strange contradiction is that we build our businesses for freedom and then quietly accept a version of success that takes us away from the life that freedom was meant to create. We tell ourselves that the schedule can't change, travel is necessary, the hours are simply part of the deal. And when a belief has become repeated often enough, it can start to feel like a fact until something interrupts it, something that causes you to maybe look again. And once you see that structure was never meant to be as permanent as you believed, you may begin to notice how many other choices have been waiting for you. Today, I'm sharing a story about my three children: one immersed in hockey, w- one immersed in dance, excuse me, and one sampling from a buffet of sports and interests, inviting me to learn through him. Each one has required a different kind of presence from me. Each one has helped me see that the life that we say we are building has to appear somewhere in the life we're actually living. And this is all about those moments that we can't replay, the stories we tell ourselves about work, and what may become possible when we decide to build that life into our calendar. So let's dive in. There are some moments that you cannot replay. You can watch the video, and in our house, those videos get watched a lot. You can look at the pictures, but you can't return to a moment and become more present inside of it. Over the past few weeks, my family has had the chance to celebrate some really important milestones. My daughter graduated from high school. She also graduated from dance after 14 years. She competed at a national dance competition, and there were ceremonies and galas and performances and pictures and celebrations and really, really long, tiring days together. And I was there for all of it. And most importantly, I was present for all of it. And there is a difference. Being there is a scheduling decision, but being present is an internal one. And for me, learning how to do both required me to change a story I'd once told myself about business, work, and the kind of life that was available to me. So the story I told myself about work was there was a season very early on where I was not as present as I wanted to be. Thankfully, it was early. I was traveling much more. I worked long, long hours, and I really just didn't take care of my body. I was 400 pounds, if you can believe it. I told myself that the business was only available to me in a certain form, and that form involved planes, hotels, long days, and a schedule that seemed to be everyone else's except for mine. I believe that this was simply what the work required. The business had rules, success had rules, an opportunity arrived in a package, and if I wanted the opportunity, I had to accept the package. And that was a story. It felt true because I repeated it over and over and over again. And a lot of entrepreneurs do this. We build something because we want freedom. Then we accept a version of the business that requires us to surrender most of that freedom. And we sell ourselves a story that it's temporary. We tell ourselves the next season will be different. I'll just get this thing done and it will be different. I'll have more time. I'll have more energy. I'll have more space. We tell ourselves that missing one dinner, this one practice, or this one weekend will eventually create more time. And truly, sometimes that is necessary. Building something often does require real sacrifice. But the sacrifice can quietly become an identity if we're not attentive. the person who is always needed, the person who's always traveling, the person who can never step away, the person who's wearing the superhero cape, the person who only functions when everything revolves around them. Eventually, the business is no longer asking us to live that way. We are asking it to confirm the story we already believe to be true and that we formed as part of our identity. And there's a moment that changed the story. And if you've been a frequent listener, you've heard parts of this before. My youngest son became critically ill. It took him a few years to recover. And that's not the story I want to tell today. The illness absolutely mattered, and the recovery absolutely mattered. The fear and uncertainty that occurred over that period of time is significant, and it also mattered. But the part that I keep returning to is what the experience revealed to me. I discovered that my schedule was not as fixed as I had believed. I could move things, I could reschedule meetings, I could change how I delivered my work, and I could reduce travel, almost eliminating it, and I could redesign the entire structure of my days. I could continue doing the work I loved and that I happened to be really good at. I simply had to stop treating the existing form of work as permanent and the only way to do it. The work was real. The limits I'd placed around it were often my own story. And that distinction really changed my life. The illness did not create a new set of hours in the day or a whole bunch more time. It forced me to make different decisions with the time that I already had and that had already existed. And it happened for me because it made the cost of my old story impossible to ignore. I could no longer say that my family was the reason why I worked so hard while structuring the work in a way that continuously pulled me away from them. My calendar needed to reflect what I said mattered because it really did. And it couldn't wait any longer. That someday needed to come right now. So the life we keep on postponing is real, and entrepreneurs are really good at building for a future state, delaying the gratification. We build for the next revenue target, the next hire, the next office, the next chapter. We are trained to delay gratification, and that ability is highly useful, but it also can become very dangerous. We can delay the experience of our own lives. We can start believing that presence is something we will earn later after the company reaches a certain size, after this next deal closes, after the next person is hired, after the current problem settles down. But the problem is that next chapter arrives with its own demands. There's always another reason to postpone being fully present. And the life I wanted was not waiting on the other side of a perfect business. It had to be built into the business that I already had. And that made it clear that I had to start making choices on purpose. It meant deciding which meetings required me and which required a better system or better support. It meant questioning travel that had once seemed automatic. It meant becoming more protective of moments that could not be recreated. It meant understanding that flexibility is not only about having free time, it's about being able to direct my attention toward what matters when it matters. I have 3 kids and they live in 3 different worlds. Each one has invited me into that world with them. My eldest son has been immersed in hockey for almost 18 years. Hockey comes naturally to me. I played it growing up. I understand the game. I coached him for many, many years. I continue to coach him even though he's 20 years old. I know the rhythms of the season and the system of play. I understand the early mornings, the cold rinks, the bad coffee, the practices, the tournaments, and the long drives. In that world, I can contribute through experience. I could teach. I could coach. I could share something I already loved. And it changed with my middle child. She immersed herself in dance. Now, that's a world that's very native to my wife, but it was a different education for me. I learned by watching her and them. I learned how much repetition sits behind just a few minutes on stage. I learned how much discipline it takes to make movement appear effortless. I learned the routines of rehearsals and competitions and costumes and corrections. I did not need to understand dance the way she does obviously. I needed to respect how much it meant to her. And for 14 years, I had the chance to watch her become more confident in all arenas, confident with criticism, confident on stage, confident with her performance, confident with herself, and the ability to trust her own preparation, not only as a dancer, but as a person. Her high school graduation and her graduation from dance happened at the same time, and they were not unrelated events. They were two expressions of almost exactly the same thing. She was completing chapters that had helped shape her. The national competition gave us another chance to stop and witness it, not to evaluate it, not to rush forward to what comes next, just to take it in. My youngest son, our third child, has offered me a different kind of invitation. He's not immersed in one activity. He enjoys the buffet. He has played hockey, basketball, football. He fishes. He experiments with other sports and interests. Some stay for a while and others just pass on through. His experience is much broader. He's an enjoyer of sport as opposed to someone who has chosen one sport as a central identity. And that has required something different from me because hockey is familiar. Fishing is way less natural to me. I never did it until an adult, really. Some of his interests do not fit neatly inside my own experience. And that's part of the gift. With my eldest, I could enter through knowledge. With my daughter, I learned through witnessing. With my youngest, I often enter through curiosity. I follow his attention. I learn because he cares about it. I do not need him to choose the interest that makes it easiest for me to participate. I need to participate in the life he's actually living. So, look, presence doesn't always look the same. Being present with each child has required a different version of me. Sometimes presence has meant coaching. Sometimes presence means sitting in the audience. Sometimes it means standing near the water and learning about fishing for my son. Sometimes it meant driving and waiting and watching and really just listening. The activity is not the point. The relationship is just being built underneath that layer. Children's Our children and all children notice what receives our attention. They notice when we remember the name of the move, the position they played, or the fish they were hoping to catch. They notice when we were interested because they are interested. That kind of attention tells them something. It tells them what matters to them is worth entering. It tells them that they do not need to become a smaller version of us to remain connected to us. It tells them that their interests have value before those interests produce a trophy, a scholarship, or a permanent identity. And I think that builds confidence. Not confidence based on achievement, confidence rooted in being seen and becoming who you really are. The calendar is really telling the story, though, because my wife works shift work at the hospital. Her schedule does not have the same structural flexibility as mine, but she has always still found a way to be there. She did many of what the other parents did as well over the last several years. They also had inflexible schedules from the outside looking in, but they were there. I'm not suggesting that every parent has equal control over their work and their work schedule. They don't. Some schedules are harder to move. Some jobs carry real restrictions. Some seasons leave very few choices, yet I have watched people with very complicated lives protect the moments that mattered most. They traded shifts, they used vacation days, they rearranged responsibilities, they accepted inconvenience and made that moment visible on the calendar before everything else tried to occupy it. Presence usually costs something. The question is whether we decide what is worth the cost. For me, the goal was never to remove work from my life. I love my work. It's part of who I am, and man, I'm good at it. The goal was to stop using the work I loved as a reason to remain absent from the people I loved. And those two things didn't need to compete in the way I once imagined. I could re-engineer the schedule. I could change the delivery. I could become much more disciplined about the work so the work did not spill into everything else. I could build a business that supported the life I claimed I wanted, but I had to stop waiting for that life to appear automatically. So We measure success through what we build: revenue, reach, impact, and the number of people we employ. Sometimes it's the problems we solve, and those things matter. But success also has to be experienced. If I create freedom but never feel free, something is missing. If I build flexibility but remain mentally unavailable, then something is missing. If I say I'm doing all of this for my family but miss the moments that shape our family, then something's missing. The biggest moments are rarely big because of the ceremony itself. They're big because they reveal the accumulation of time: 14 years of dance, almost 18 years of hockey, seasons of experimentation and practices and games and performance and car rides and meals between events, conversations that would have never happened anywhere else. That big moment gives us a view of all the small moments gathered in one place. And it doesn't matter if they win or lose. It matters if we were there for the experience. And that's why it deserves all of our attention. We are not only celebrating the result, we are witnessing the becoming. So I recently watched my daughter graduate. I watched her take the stage after 14 years of dance and experience some personal bests. I watched my children spend that time together. For a few days, there was nowhere else I needed to be. Years ago, I might have believed that was impossible. Now I know much of what feels impossible is sometimes a structure we have stopped questioning, and that work may be important. The meeting may feel urgent. The next opportunity may be very real. Some moments arrive only once. And when they do, I want to be able to recognize the life I worked so hard to build, and I want to be inside it. So I wonder what that life would look like to you. Write it on a napkin and share it. Tag it with the hashtag Paper Napkin Wisdom, because ideas small enough to fit on a napkin are often large enough to change your world. I believe in you. Make it a great day.